Hey, good afternoon everybody. Today I'm going to make some fish cakes to go with that tartar sauce I made the other day. Now, I didn't get all of it out because I didn't want to busy up the counter too much. There's basically two key ingredients to this. Some frozen fish fillet, which I will soon defrost, some potatoes of some kind, and some seasoning. Now, I've got some dried shallots here I'm going to grind up. You don't have to get that fancy. I just happen to keep some of these in the house. If you've got onion powder, that works great. A little salt and pepper. I don't know if I have dried parsley. If I do, or some chives, I'll toss that in. It's all to taste, okay? So the key thing with this is you got mashed potatoes and cooked fish. Now, if you want to steam the fish, that's up to you. It's very healthy, but you're going to have a very strong flavor. What I do is I usually poach mine in either water or milk. Now today I haven't got any milk, but I got a bit of coffee cream. So I'm going to use some water and a bit of coffee cream because for some chemical magic the milk chelates the heavy metals and it also removes the smell, and you have a much milder flavor and it's pretty good then. And then to finish it up, it's a standard breading with some flour, egg, and breadcrumbs. And I did forget one thing. Yeah, you put an egg in the mix to bind it together. So let's get going. Always think about organizing your time when you're doing something like this. So the fish are going to take the longest to prepare, i.e. defrosting. I'm just going to lay the fillets out on my countertop. If that doesn't cut it, I can pop them in some water to defrost them quicker. The next step is going to be peel the potatoes, and then I'm going to grind up some shallots. I do want about equal parts of this. Now, this is a 680 gram bag, which is roughly a pound and some. So I want about half of this bag. So, okay, let's get one little one back on there. 400 grams. Close enough, good enough. Now, I'm going to peel the potatoes first and weigh them after, because you want equal parts. You don't want to weigh 400 grams and then be short because of the trimmings. So after peeling, we got about 500 grams, which is a little more than half, but you know, don't stress on it. It's just fish cakes, eh? And yeah, I'm going to wash these and cut them in half, put them in the microwave. They always work out better in the microwave for something like this because they come out drier. So just chop them in little chunks, put a bit of water, and cook them till they're done. I usually do a 2 or 3 baked potato setting for these. I've rinsed all of these and dripped the water over. What you drip over the bowl probably should be enough. You can put another spoon if you're worried, but you got to remember is when you take them out, it's going to steam and you could burn yourself. Always important, cut them in half just to make sure you don't have any bad surprises when you take them out and there was like a moldy bit. And just, I use a plate of the same size. I pop the fish in the sink in some cold water to defrost quicker. My potatoes are cooking in the microwave, so I got my dried shallots here. And this is, of course, is just, oops. Well, they're in there now and they're dried, so my hands are wet, so I will have a strongly flavored lunch then. Okay. Now, if you don't have a mortar and pestle, what you can do is just put these, if you're going to use something, a dried spice like this of any kind, just put in a fairly sturdy Ziploc bag, close it, and go over it with a rolling pin. And if you're diligent enough, yes, it will powder. And if you are going to use a mortar and pestle, which are quite common at stores these days, just break up the large bits by pressing down on them, because it looks really good to go around at the beginning, but you're not really doing anything. You have to have enough powder and enough small bits that when you start doing that, you'll actually get a result. Okay, then you start grinding. And if there's some you see in the middle, you can just stop and repeat that process. And there we have it, dried shallot powder. Now, if you're going to use onion powder, I would use probably about a half as much. So this is looking like about a tablespoon. I would use probably like, yeah, half to 1 teaspoon of onion powder because it's really strong. This has got a milder flavor. The fish is nearly defrosted, so I'll just leave that in the sink for now to finish it off quick. The water's on boil on the stove, and I'll just mash the potatoes in the meantime. So be very, very careful when you take this out. I use a kitchen rag, and as you can see the amount of steam coming off, yeah, you can burn yourself pretty easily on this stuff. And there was just enough water that they'll mash with a fork. Just do them right in the bowl. Once they're all mashed there, you're going to be mixing them up in a bowl, so what I do is just transfer it. It's going to be still quite hot. So the steam coming off that, and just kind of spread them out so they dry a little bit and cool off. You want them cool enough to handle when you make the fish cakes. Alright. The reason you want to defrost these first is you do not want this stuff going in your cooking water, okay? You want to get rid of that. So, some of these things have a notch. I just cut them with the scissors and pour the nasty right down the other drain, while keeping a hold of the fish fillet that will nearly slip out of the bag. No, they're not alive, but they do try to get away from you. The water is starting to bubble, so I will just slide that in there. I definitely am going to put a bit of coffee cream in here just to get some calcium and milk protein. Cut the smell. Whenever you put milk in something like this, it will scald. And what that means is that lovely foam on the top, which is actually capturing the smell. I was going to turn these, but they're falling apart like crazy. So I think I'm just going to have to turn the heat off after and fish them out, which is fine. Do not turn this up to boil, because if you do, it's going to go all over the stove, and it really is a mess to clean. These fillet are quite small, so I'm guessing they're done now. If you overcook them, yeah, here we go, it's falling apart. Yeah, there's your test, it's cooked. Now, if you don't have one of these, you can always just pour it through a strainer. Add your seasonings. Now, if you've got something like this or the onion powder, just sprinkle it over the top. You don't want to just all dump it in. You are going to be mixing this up, but still. Now you can use tongs or the fork. Just kind of break it up a bit. I'm going to be hand mixing this after it cools off a little bit. I don't want to put the egg in right away, because it will just cook instead of bind it. Nice part of doing them by hand after with a glove is that if there are any bones left in the fillet, yes, you will find them. Or you should. Feel around, don't just look at it. And the milk really works. This hardly smells at all compared to the OMG what did I do when it came out of the sink. And just toss that with the tongs at first, just kind of mix it up a little bit and cool it off quicker. Okay, I got my assembly line going here. Forgot to turn the camera on, sorry. So I cracked the egg on top of the mixture and crack another one in a bowl and just whip that up quick. If you're worried about not having enough, you can either add a little milk or water. I'll just put a splash of water in here. Stretch it out a bit. You won't need that much. First thing is prepare your mixture by working. Egg does not need to be beaten through this. Now if it's still warm but not hot, you'll notice it start to thicken up just nicely, but it's not like just glomming together into a hard mass, and then you couldn't make the fish cakes. But you'll notice it's getting pretty firm pretty quick, which is important. You don't want this too soft when it goes in the frying pan. So now you have to decide how big you're going to make your fish cakes. So just divide that in half roughly with your glove, and then in half again, and see what we've got here. That's way too big, so I'm just going to squeeze it in half like that, flatten them. So to do these right, what you do is you roll them into a ball and then you mush them and turn them in your hand using your thumb until you get these little pucks. And I know I'm from Canada and all our food seems to look like pucks, but that's not always the case. Okay, so this is going to make nice 8 fish cakes here, I can tell right now. So I'm just going to set these on the plate to set up for a minute while I make the rest. So I got them all made up here. Now I may have put out a bit too much flour and breadcrumbs, but I don't want to have to go back to the containers in the middle of the recipe. So first things first, and I would do these one at a time. Just drop one in the flour, turn it over, and kind of roll it like this. And get rid of that fork now. And then just briefly drop it in the egg. Turn it. I just want to get these cooked, so I'm not letting them cool as long. If you want, you could put these in the fridge quite nicely and let them rest. Now this, you want to treat really gently. You don't want to start squeezing it in the breadcrumbs because it'll just deform and you'll have a mess, which is why you use more breadcrumbs, okay? So that's a finished fish cake. I'm going to be shallow frying these to cover the bottom of the pan. Not so thin and not so thick, okay? I don't put this over high heat, I put it over medium high and I wait for a bit. The oil looks nearly hot, so to test it, I just pick a breadcrumb off one of the fish cakes, and sure enough, it's sizzling, which is good. Works way better if you gently put them in one at a time with a spatula. And now that they've had a decent amount of time to set, they're not hard, but they're much easier to deal with and they're not falling all over the place. If you see a couple of breadcrumbs start to burn, resist the urge to turn it down. If you turn down the temperature of the oil, it will soak in to the fish cakes so much they'll just be like greasy and you won't want to eat them. If you keep it at a fairly high heat like this, where they're just chugging along, but not so hot that it's burning, you're good. You're only going to be turning these things once, so have a little patience for this bit. Shouldn't take more than a few minutes. You can kind of scooch them around, make sure that nothing's sticking, but treat them very gently. Once these are cooked like this, they heat up really nicely in the microwave, so if you want to keep some in the fridge for a couple of days, that's fine. Now I'm looking down the sides here. I'll just zoom in so you can see. You can start to see there's a bit of darkness happening near the bottom. So what you can do is, if you want to test one, and we'll just do this one we can see, get a spoon for this part, because you don't want to use a fork and have the fork tear up the other side of the fish cake. Okay. Oh yeah, that's looking just nice, eh? So that's good enough, and I'll just use the spoon and the spatula to gently turn the rest. Is you want to do what I'm doing and move them around the pan a little bit, and if you hold them to the side like it's sort of a carnival ride for the fish cakes, and what you can do is the oil, which is not that deep, will pool up on the side of the pan. So if your temperature is fairly controlled, what you can do is just fry the sides of the fish cakes here for that extra little bit. Now remember, the potatoes and the fish are already cooked. So your only concern right now is visual appeal, and to remember that the egg that is in there is cooked through as well, especially if you plan to keep them or reheat them. And see how they're looking on the other side. Oh, and they're just looking so nice. I don't know if any of you remember when you could actually buy these in the store. I don't know why they got rid of these. They were super cheap and super good. But now that you know how to make your own, who cares? Alright, so I'll turn the oil off right away and put them on a plate with some paper towel. The moment of truth here. So here's the tartar sauce from yesterday, which is set up just nicely. So I'll put like a dollop on each fish cake. And for this, yeah, I want to dig in. 1, 2. So you can see that it's crunchy and soft and cooked, but the insides are still fluffy. You know, just scoop some out for you to see that they're not greasy. Oh my. For those of you that remember, this is truly old school. That crunch and that melt. And I forgot to say, these are really cheap to make. I'll just leave it here for now. Thank you for watching. I really hope you try these things. They're so good. And do subscribe. See you again.